Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of the Solar Opposites Halloween special. Okay, so when I said that was actually the final review that we were going to be doing for season 3, yeah, I technically lied to you guys, because technically there is a technically the season is 12 episodes, but one of those episodes is a holiday special, which they've done exactly one of before, and there's the second, and now there's the second one. So this episode was released as part of a 12 episode order for the entirety of the season, and it's set at the end in between seasons 2, 3, and presumably 4. But yeah, if we get a fourth season, I'm assuming we're going to continue to just get seasons until they finally finish the story they're trying to tell, which is not much, but it's more so just them doing sci-fi shenanigans. But yeah, the episode is pretty much what you expect. It's a Halloween special. There's not much else I can say about it, but it's a Solar Opposites take on a Halloween special, which of course is hilarious. But in case the episode opens up with Jesse and Terry actually decorating the house for Halloween, and they're excited for the Halloween season because they love Halloween. They openly admit that they love Halloween. Unfortunately, there's a bit of early conflict with this, and that's apparently Corvo does not like Halloween. He in fact he's shit scared of it. He just hates the whole month, and of course he's very much trying to kind of shut down any Halloween. I should mention he hates Halloween to such an extent that he's just outright shit scared of it. Obviously, the first thing we see of him in this Halloween special, he runs out with a shotgun and starts blasting Halloween decorations at the house. Which, yeah, it's pretty clear that he has just no chill regarding Halloween, and that's fair. Halloween can be very scary, but he doesn't understand that. But yeah, he doesn't seem to understand that they pretty much already committed to Halloween, and he's just terrified of the whole thing. But anyways, so then they eventually get him to calm down and pull him inside, where we find out that Yumulak also doesn't like Halloween, and it is implied that he's a replicant of Corvo, but it's then revealed that actually he is a replicant of Corvo in this episode. Something that apparently didn't bother bringing up until now, but that's a canon piece of lore detail. Yumulak is actually a replicant of Corvo. It comes up randomly in the episode, but it is a small little detail that they don't really bring up. But in case Yumulak comes down covered in cobwebs, and Corvo comes dangerously close to shooting him, I should mention, and nearly kills him. But I'll get to that in a minute. But he comes down, and he's visibly upset over the fact that he doesn't like Halloween either. For a completely different reason. He just thinks he's not shit scared of it like Corvo is. He just thinks it's dumb, and openly admits that to the rest of the team. He just thinks the whole thing is dumb, and also just thinks it's lame. He just openly admits he does not like having the whole fantasy thing mixed with their sci-fi nonsense. He just doesn't appreciate other genres of things, as it quickly becomes apparent. And he quickly tells them not to let any more of the fantasy stuff in the house. So but of course it's at this point where of course Jesse and Terry then proceed to point out that actually it is actually a bit of a day of merrymaking. That's and of course we find out they actually strongly believe in the Great Pumpkin, which is a made-up thing from the what is it? It's a made-up thing from Peanuts. I know that's what it's from, but yeah, it's a made-up thing from Peanuts that Linus randomly makes up as a mythological figure for Halloween in that one special, and it's one of his defining character traits, where Linus will just around Halloween time, he'll just randomly blurt out that the Great Pumpkin is a real thing, and he will openly admit that. And Corvo even takes the opportunity to kind of make fun of it, pointing out that obviously he's literally just a discount Santa Claus, which yeah, is fair. That's the whole point of the Great Pumpkin in the actual Peanuts thing. It's just it's just Santa Claus, but with a different name. So but of course they continue to insist that the pumpkin is that the Great Pumpkin is real, and also that the entire point is to let their hair down and celebrate with pagan traditions. But Corvo, of course, isn't particularly having any of it, and actually asks for a bucket to vomit in, and he does. And also he gets we also find out, and also the pupa winds up coming downstairs at one point because Corvo blasts a hole in the ceiling, which causes the pupa to come downstairs, and we know it's set between seasons 3 and 4 because the pupa still seem foam green in this one. So yeah, it's set after season 3, but it's part of season 3. It's after season 3, before season 4, somewhere vaguely in there. Season 3 is only 11 episodes. This is the 12th one. But yeah, in any case, it's at this point where their neighbor Randall actually knocks on the door, and he proceeds to bring them a fire for Candy Corn Row, which he tells them is a yearly neighborhood thing. It's this big thing that they celebrate, and that he just reminds them that it exists, because what we find is that Terry already knows it exists, and he thanks Randall for the flyer, and then sends him on his merry way. And Randall reveals that actually it's not a competition. He points out it's not a competition, pointing out that nobody can actually beat his house since he starts November 1st on his house. And then he proceeds to leave, and we then proceed to learn that from the solar opposites that Randall spends an exuberant amount of money making a DIY haunted house every year, and he spends pretty much the whole year working on it. He budgets for that. He budgets for all the things, and we find out later that the reason he's able to do this is because it brings in a lot of money, which enables him to do it year round. But I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, he just uses all the money that the haunted house brings in to make the haunted house bigger and grander every single year after that. So yeah, they point out that obviously it's a big thing, and and they ask Corvo if they can participate in Candy Corn Row this year, but of course Corvo establishes that he's staunchly opposed to the idea of a haunted house anywhere near his own. So he's very open about the fact that he's not going to let them. And eventually, Terry reveals that he's actually not going to let them do that. So he decides to redeem a coupon that Corvo gave him for a blowjob. But what we find out is that apparently it enables the fine print is that it'll enable Terry to redeem something of equal value. So he decides to redeem 2 of those so he can put in exactly 1 Halloween decoration. And Corvo unfortunately is forced to relent because he realizes he's the one who wrote the fine print on those. He realizes pretty quickly he kind of has no choice, which of course enables Jesse and Terry to celebrate, and they quickly set to work trying to figure out the perfect Halloween decoration for them to set up. Meanwhile, Yumiak is trying to clean all of the stuff off the roof. He's trying to get it all off the roof of the broom, and the pupa's there to help him somewhat, or at least there to watch. And he's trying to clean up all the Halloween stuff on the roof, but he unfortunately slips off, falls, and then proceeds to land on a wrought iron gate that's like next door, and he dies. He winds up dying, and then is also dragged down to hell, which winds up becoming the B plot of the episode. And yeah, that is a little bit of an interesting thing. And obviously the pupa sees this whole thing and is unsure how to take it. And but is also throughout the episode tries and fails to get the rest of the solar opposites to notice that, hey, Yumiak died. You should probably do something about that. And of course, the pupa is unfortunately unable to do anything about it by himself until the very end of the episode. So that winds up enabling the B plot to happen. But in case, and we'll cover that at the end because it is a bit funny. But of course, it's this point where Jesse and Terry, they start staking out Randall's house to try and figure out a decoration that he doesn't have, and they eventually do find a weak point in one of his decorations. That one of the coffins that he has is just made out of cardboard, and they quickly realize they can beat that. So they immediately go to the graveyard, dig up an actual corpse, and then use sci-fi, and then establish. They essentially just use sci-fi magic to bring it to life. They use sci-fi nonsense to make it a animatronic, essentially, an animatronic gravekeeper, which fairly enough is based on a graveyard character from another Halloween special a long time ago, and even voiced by the same guy who brought that original. So it's essentially just a spoof of that. And the guy was brought back, and the guy who originally voiced that was brought back to voice the graveyard keeper from that original special in this one. So, yeah, but in case they use sci-fi magic to bring the corpse to life, they use a cauldron protocol to bring him to life as well, which of course Aisha tells them not to stand too close to because they'll easily fall in, and that she's not going to clean that up. So, but of course they eventually do succeed, and it's at this point where Corvo does come downstairs for a midnight drink of coffee, and because he can't sleep, and that's not gonna help. I'll be perfectly honest, but he starts setting up the brewer, and while he's doing that, the crypt keeper starts standing ominously in the darkness of the dining room. And he doesn't realize until the Crypt Keeper comes out and tells him a creepy anthological story at him, which of course causes Corvo to freak the hell out, and he immediately runs upstairs and into the bathroom where Jesse and Terry are actually having a bath, and he tells them that's and he immediately tells them about the Crypt Keeper, but they reveal that actually they were the ones who built it and set it up. And pointing out that he's their Halloween decoration, but Corvo of course points out that doesn't really count, since obviously bringing a corpse to life with sci-fi bullshit is kind of breaking the rules a little bit. But of course Terry explains that the Crypt Keeper, while creepy, obviously doesn't really do anything other than tell anthological stories. And sure enough, he then proceeds to arrive in the bathroom and tells an anthological story with puns, which of course Terry points out he doesn't do anything other than that, which makes him a decoration. So even though Corvo's admittedly very creeped out and doesn't fully understand what to do with it, but of course he tells them that as long as they keep him away from him, he's perfectly happy with them keeping the Crypt Keeper around as long as it doesn't affect him in any way. Which of course it does, but that's beside the point. But in any case, it's at this point where they tell him that where they proceed to bring the Crypt Keeper outside and set him up on the front lawn in a little Tommy Bahama chair. And he starts telling anthological stories while Terry and Jesse start charging people to listen to the stories. And of course they start walking by, and eventually Randall gets notice of the fact that they have their own little Crypt Keeper, and he points out that that's actually really cool, and he applauds them for their creativity, and also tells them that they should bring it around town and show everybody their new Crypt Keeper thing. So of course they decide that that's exactly what they do, at which point they go on a Halloween montage where they bring the Crypt Keeper around town to tell anthological stories. And the people continues to try and fail to get the family's attention to actually let them know that Yummy-Lack is dead and in hell. So they can't really do anything, which of course they're not literally listening to him because they think it's just a word salad. But and of course the pupa is established to perpetually be 5 years old, so that makes perfect sense for them to not believe him. But of course they just bring the Crypt Keeper around, and also while Corvo is trying to work on shit, the Crypt Keeper keeps trying to tell him anthological stories while he's trying to do important things, which only frustrates Corvo and also freaks him out a little bit. So he gets increasingly frustrated over the fact that the Crypt Keeper is just disrupting things he's trying to do and bothering him. So he does eventually get sick of the Crypt Keeper just being around. So he eventually he decides that enough is enough, and decides to bring the Crypt Keeper out into the woods, setting up a golf cart, sits the Crypt Keeper on it, and tricks the Crypt Keeper into telling him a story while he sets up places a rock on the gas, and then just sends the Crypt Keeper on his merry way. At which point he then proceeds to return home and now relieved that the Crypt Keeper is no longer going to be a problem for him. But what he quickly kind of finds out is that he actually messed up. As it turns out, Terry and Jesse very much loved the Crypt Keeper. They are very brokenhearted about the fact that he just disappeared. So they don't really know how to take the fact that the Crypt Keeper disappeared. So but Corvo, of course, tries to reassure him, pointing out that maybe he just wandered off somewhere. But of course they don't really buy it. And it's at this point where Corvo starts to feel a little bit guilty about the fact that the Crypt Keeper has wandered off, and it's completely his fault. So of course any attempts he has of actually reassuring them are completely and utterly wasted. And of course there's this point where Terry and Jesse decide that they can't really wait for the Crypt Keeper to come back on his own. So they start setting up a bunch of flyers all over town. That winds up being a thing. I'll get to that. But of course Corvo quickly realizes that they're not going to give up until the Crypt Keeper is actually until the Crypt Keeper is as safe as. And also, there's another thing where they set up a bunch of things in the back, where they set up a bunch of flyers in the backyard, and even one on Yumilak's corpse, which they apparently don't even realize is actually a thing. So they start setting up flyers around town, printing them. While Corvo eventually realizes that he needs to find the Crypt Keeper, so he goes back to the woods where he left the Crypt Keeper, and he's looking around trying to get the Crypt Keeper to come out of hiding, trying to tell him that he was always intended to come back, and tries to get him to return, and wanders into the woods, but quickly realizes that the Crypt Keeper isn't there, and also if he is there, he's not gonna wait around for him in the creepy ass woods. So he immediately goes back into the car and goes back and decides to start looking around town, and eventually he realizes that he sees the Crypt Keeper wandering around Randall's house, and he quickly realizes that the Crypt Keeper must have gotten attracted to Randall's DIY haunted house, and had wandered into the house that way. So he realizes now that he needs to get the Crypt Keeper back. So he grabs a stick to fend off all the Halloween decorations first and foremost, because he finds Halloween decorations a bit creepy, and of course he immediately eventually, well, I should mention, very much eventually, he arrives on the front porch, rings Randall's doorbell, and although he immediately panics and runs and tries to run off the porch, but Randall comes out in his Halloween costume before he can. And he's dressed as a pharaoh, but which Corvo immediately panics at, but then realizes it's just Randall in a costume, and tells Randall what's up about how the Crypt Keeper had actually wandered into his house, and he needs to get it back. So then Randall quickly realizes it's a whole mess and a whole mistake, and he invites Corvo inside to help clean it up and clean up the whole misunderstanding. So Corvo does in fact come inside. Although he is a little bit reluctant at first, because obviously Randall's entire thing is that he decks out the whole house for Halloween. But Randall then proceeds to explain that actually he doesn't decorate the inside of the house, just the outside. So when Corvo comes in, it's completely fine. It's just a normal living room, nothing too scary. But Corvo is taken so relieved by the fact that the house is normal on the inside that he doesn't realize that Randall has dropped a golf club and proceeds to knock him out. When Corvo wakes up, he's tied to a chair next to the Crypt Keeper, when we then find out that Randall is not really into Halloween at all. What we find out is that he's a huge poser, as Corvo puts it, and what we find out is that he only decorates his house for Halloween because it brings in a lot of money for him, and he can afford to just kind of bring people in year round. He doesn't really care about the whole holiday day itself. He just likes all the money it brings him. So, and yeah, I talked about that a little bit earlier, but yeah, that's essentially what Randall's entire deal is. He doesn't like Halloween, but he loves the money it brings him. And also reveals that now he has two of the most perfect decorations he can ask for. An actual alien corpse, which he's implying that he's eventually going to murder Corvo, and also the Crypt Keeper, which he's going to keep in the house pretty much indefinitely now. So, yeah, he then proceeds to, but of course Corvo tries and fails to call for help because he's currently in the basement and no one can hear him out over the sound of all the holiday shenanigans and stuff. But then Randall leaves to get a bunch of more decorations that have been delivered to his house, and they're all black lights. But he tells Corvo not to move, and Corvo tries to communicate with the Crypt Keeper to get him to lean away from the chair so that they can both escape. But the Crypt Keeper, of course, does not listen to Corvo because it's literally just, again, it's just established to be a walking Halloween decoration. It does nothing else other than tell stories, so it doesn't really listen to Corvo. So Corvo quickly realizes that he's on his own and that it was worth a shot, but of course then he spies the giant pumpkin out of Randall's basement window, and he realizes that it's better than nothing, and starts praying to the great pumpkin to let him go, pointing out that to help him let go, obviously pointing out that he believed the great pumpkin was that he knows he's been talking nothing but shit for pretty much the entire day, but does point out that he absolutely needs help now more than ever. And sure enough, the Great Pumpkin proceeds to answer his prayers, and he's exactly what you would expect the Great Pumpkin to look like, so I'm not even going to bother picturing him. But, yeah, he's pretty much just a walking pumpkin. There's literally nothing else. But the Great Pumpkin shows up with a pumpkin carving knife and proceeds to help Corvo escape, and revealing that he actually did listen to Corvo's prayers. And of course Corvo points out that he's obviously sorry for dissing his entire holiday, pointing out that he's obviously been scared shitless the entire time. But then the Great Pumpkin points out that that's actually the point of the holiday. That obviously the whole point is to adorn your stuff with pagan relics and wear funny masks. And tells him that the whole point is that you're supposed to be scary. You're supposed to be scared of Halloween. And he then goes on to explain how to be afraid is to essentially be the embodiment of Halloween itself. You're supposed to be scared. But in case he then proceeds to tell Corvo that now he has to go and make another round because somebody else is actually praying to him. And specifically it's for more Halloween candy for his dad to come back, which is really sad and messed up. But Corvo then proceeds to try and snatch the white knife away from the Great Pumpkin, telling him that he's very sorry for having to do what he's about to do. And he then proceeds to stab the Great Pumpkin to death and wear his corpse as a disguise while hiding the Crypt Keeper inside so they can escape. And of course, Randall quickly realizes that they're trying to escape because they wander into his maze and he's currently in there. And he then proceeds to follow Corvo to the final stop of the haunted house, where he eventually arrives in the final room, and it's full of pumpkins. So he eventually realizes that he's going to eventually need to find a way to get him out. So he starts smashing up pumpkins in an attempt to find Corvo and the Crypt Keeper. And he does miss. There is a very near miss at one point, but then the Crypt Keeper starts telling mythological stories, which is what quickly cues Randall into the fact that they're in the Great Pumpkin, and he smashes open the Great Pumpkin. At which point Corvo tries to reason with him like an adult, but quickly realizes that that's not going to work. So he grabs a knife and they start fighting with Randall using an axe to fight. And Corvo eventually slips in pumpkin goo and falls over. And Randall is about to finish him when suddenly the Crypt Keeper tells a very personal story about Randall's life, which freaks Randall the hell out at first. But the Crypt Keeper then proceeds to go on to explain how he knows that Randall has essentially stopped caring about the holiday, which is no longer a measure of growth, but just Randall essentially becoming a walking decoration himself. So he then proceeds to go on about tell the whole story about how Randall has essentially wasted his life being the Halloween guy, and that's about his entire personality trait. And of course, this is this point where Corvo decides to snatch up the Crypt Keeper and leave, while Randall actually winds up taking what the Crypt Keeper told him to heart and decides to rethink his life a little bit. So and Corvo thanks the Crypt Keeper for saving his ass, pointing out that he didn't think the Crypt Keeper was actually paying attention this whole time, but then realizes that yeah, he has been. And the Crypt Keeper just responds by telling him another anthological story. So Corvo just decides to bring him home, and much to Jesse and Terry's joy, they finally have their Crypt Keeper back. And thus points out that now that they put this whole ordeal behind them, they can now continue to focus on fixing the ship again. Even though they point out that they told him not to ruin the moment, but of course they all get into a group hug. At which point Corvo finally realizes that Yumulak is dead because the people finally told him when he tries to pull into the group hug. Meanwhile, and now I can finally get to the B plot where Yumulak has been in hell pretty much this whole time, but what we quickly find is that obviously Yumulak is openly admits he's not really enthused by the whole idea of that, and he winds up being greeted by a demon who tells him that he's going to be suffered and suffer for eternal damnation for all eternity. But what we'll quickly find out is that eternal damnation means pretty much nothing to an alien because they've been They obviously, first and foremost, he doesn't really appreciate any of the horrors of any of that hell has to offer, because he's been to space. He's an alien. He's seen the further reaches of space. He knows that there's horrible things, and the other demons can't really do anything to him because, tortured or not, he mostly just makes fun of them, while also pointing out that none of their torture methods are effective because he's a plant. He's a plant-based alien. And they're not accustomed to torturing aliens, just humans. And quickly realizing that their methods are not working on him, they bring him down to Satan himself, where they quickly realize that Yummy quickly realizes they're scared of him, and of course the Satan then proceeds to reveal himself, and again he's exactly what you'd expect Satan to be, but I'm not even gonna picture him, but he then tells the other demons that they failed, and tells them that they allowed a mortal to ascend to the lowest level of his plane, and then proceeds to kill all of them. While also threatening to torture Yumulak with more tortures, and that this will be the worst thing he's ever done. But Yumulak quickly realizes that actually he now understands, because he was in hell, the actual he actually finally understands the actual appeal of other genres now, because he points out that obviously all of this fear and hell and all those things have actually gotten him to open his eyes to other genres, and it's at this point where Satan tells him that now he understands and now he can rule by his side. But it's at this point where the solar opposites use a ray to bring Yumulak back to life. So he winds up ascending from hell, all while pointing out that he's not going to be sticking around because his family is sci-fi as hell, and then proceeds to mock Satan while he's transported out of hell and back into his own body, which has now been brought back to life by presumably by a ray that seemingly does exactly that. We don't find out what the ray is called, but it has a design that very much speaks for itself. And of course, they apologize for letting Yumulak rot in hell for all this time, pointing out that they normally are just used to him just going off and doing whatever. So they didn't really realize the fact that he was dead this whole time. And it's at this point where Corvo asks Yumulak how hell was, but Yumulak reveals that he was pretty much barely paying attention and just goes back to checking his phone. At which point they're just happy about the fact that they all get to finally celebrate Halloween together. But then there's a knock at the door, and Corvo opens the front door, and he's handed a flyer by the person who answered it, and he quickly realizes that there's a bit of a problem. That Terry offered everyone who brought him a corpse a blowjob, so he quickly which means that there's now a line like going to the edge of town of people who all just have corpses. So that's how Corvo just tells Cherry to bring get the chapstick, and that's how the episode ends. So yeah, again, it's a Halloween special. It's pretty much self-explanatory. If you've seen one holiday special, you've seen them all. But this is essentially just just solar opposites spoofing holiday specials, and I kind of like that. That is kind of like how their previous special was them spoofing Christmas specials, which again I just appreciate. I like that's solar opposites entire thing. They spoof they spoof a lot of things, but specifically they spoof holiday. In this episode they spoofed Halloween specials, and I kind of like the idea of that. It's a lot of fun, but yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about that. It's a Halloween special, and now we're officially done with season 3. And that is pretty much the only thing I've done for Halloween, because I am bad at planning ahead. But I had a huge blowout last year. Didn't do one for this year, because I had better things to do with my time. But in any case, that's going to do it for my review of Solar Opposites. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon if you want to help support me. It's only a couple bucks a month, and I do very much appreciate it. But also, if you want to see more content from me, first and foremost, go check out my Twitch, because I'm pushing for affiliate over there. I stream Saturdays and Sundays. Please go check those out. It very much helps out a ton. But also, be sure to go check out the videos linked in the end screen. Since you're already here, you're probably going to watch those anyway. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas a bomb video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to try something new, or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!